Hey everybody, welcome back to the shop. Today we're going to be working on a couple of different ways of edge banding. I'm going to show you the way I used to do it, and I'm going to show you the way I do it now, and I'm going to show you a couple of different methods that you can do to trim it. But ultimately, this is not a sponsored video, so the Festool stuff that you see here, I'm not trying to sell to you. I'm just showing you my methods and how I came to get to this point of why I needed this. So I'm going to show you the differences of the way I used to do it and what are the benefits of this, what are the drawbacks of this, what are the benefits of the iron and the negative effects of that also. So let's get started, get a little bit closer here. You can see I have a whole setup going on, and that's because this is a production run. Okay, so let's move a little bit closer and talk about this more in depth. My old tried and true method for edge banding used to be taking a regular household iron like this and a small roll of pre-glued edge banding that you could get at the home center, and you can see on this solid wood edge banding on the back, if I can get the camera to focus and the light not to drown it out, there is a glue on the back of this, and that's a heat activated glue. So it's dry right now, but once a hot iron gets on there, you melt it essentially onto the workpiece. So what you would do is you would set your iron on the cotton setting, and then you would get your pre-glued edge banding. You'd cut it a little bit oversized to the piece that you were going to edge band. You'd lay it on the table somehow and try to clamp it down in some crazy manner and hold it there, and then you would line it up and try to make sure that you were centered on both sides of the piece so that you had an ample amount to cut off with the flush trim bit. And then you would take your iron and you would iron it on while the iron's hot, and then once it was glued down, you would take another block of wood just like this, and you would go over it like this, and you make sure you glue the edges down, and then you would break off the edges, and then you would take a straight razor or a scalpel and you'd either trim off as much as you could, or you'd buy one of those cheap tools they sell for the edge banding where it would kind of clamp over there and run over the edges and cut them off, and essentially making it flush to the workpiece. I've never had luck with those cheap pieces of crap, okay? They've always messed me up. So usually what I would do is I would just take this and I would somehow clamp it down, and then I would take a flush trim bit on a router with an edge bearing or a guide bearing that would follow along that, and I would trim it off like that. And then I would sand it down either by hand or with a detail sander or an orbital sander. And that worked for a long time because I wasn't doing a lot of cabinetry. I was, doing basically some cabinets, but mostly moldings, trim, and I was doing a lot of face frame work for American style cabinets. Now that's kind of gone out the window, and I'm doing a lot of frameless cabinets, and those frameless cabinets, they have no face frame. So they basically just have the edge banding covering up the edges of the ply, and it looks neat and trim, and it's actually more productive in a sense where you don't have to make face frames, and it's a lot quicker. So I've adopted that because a lot of people are actually using those now, and I enjoy it more because I switched over to the Festool Conturo. Now, if you are not doing as much cabinetry as I am, like I said, I used to only do a little bit of cabinets here and there that had required any edge banding. So for me, the iron was working. So then I started to really get into doing full kitchens and built-ins, and it just, the business blew up, and before I know it, I was making cabinetry all the time, and it was just a necessity for me to go to a system where I had a machine to do the edge banding. Now, if you are a cabinet shop, a production cabinet shop that primarily does cabinets, then you may only want this for your on-site work or for some curved work, because this unit here can work in the table or out of the table in the handheld position, and it also has an additional roller that can be added to it to work on inside radius curves, which I'm not going to be demonstrating today. And the reason I decided to show you the different methods are because you've seen me do this quite a few times in different videos. I believe it was the Kitchen Island build series where I still didn't have the conturo yet, and I was edge banding all of those parts with the iron, and so you can see me do it there. So now I'm going to show you how quick this method is, how easy it is, and the reason that I chose to do it was because I'm doing a lot more cabinets now. And so, like I said, I'm not a production cabinet shop, but I do enough cabinets to justify having this thing. It saves me days worth of work. So let's get a little bit closer. I'll show you how to do this, and I'll talk about why I have it in the table at this time. Okay guys, so let's talk really quick about 1 minute of why I have this in the table set up right now. Okay. This is the handle that you can use to have this as a mobile unit, and you've seen me do this before in other videos. I actually have a shorts video on this right here where I just show you how I run it along a larger piece by hand, which is my preferred method. I like to do that on the larger pieces. Problem is when you have pieces that are just about like 150 millimeters or less, right? Or anything that's like maybe 6 inches or less. Those pieces can't be done with this because there's really no way to clamp them in place without the base of the handle hitting into any of those clamps. So what you have to do is you have to get the table for that application. Now there is another way that you can get around this if you were only edge banding one side. Then while the piece is still not cut with the track saw to the length on the full sheet of the plywood, you can edge band that one side. Then you can measure off of that, and then you can cut your piece with the track saw, and it's already edge banded. You don't have to worry about clamping it down. Problem is with that, both of these sides of this piece has to be edge banded, so I can't do that with this. So what I'm going to do is, you see I have it in the table here. You can see on the table that it has these, let me zoom in a little bit, just so you can see what I'm talking about. So you can see on the table, it has those little white raised guides right here. And these are very slick pieces that allow the workpiece to slide across. Now, it's not because this is not slick on its own, but what happens is the edge banding, I'm working with 18 millimeter wide plywood. The edge banding, if you can see it, is 20 millimeters wide. So that extra overhangs the 18 millimeter plywood, and that has to be trimmed off, and there's a reason for that, to make it flush and perfect. This is not pre-glued. This is just solid wood edge banding with no glue on the edge banding whatsoever. And I buy this in rolls of 250 to 500 feet at a time. You can see how large these rolls are, and they are actually cheaper in that form. Now, the glue. How do we get the glue? So this machine in this pod right here on the top takes these glue pucks. Now they are all different colors that you can throw in there, and if you're working with white melamine, then you can use a white puck. If you're using black PVC trim, then you can use the black one. They also have a dark brown one. This is the best color for this because it blends in. You never see it once it's trimmed off. It will never bleed through the material. It will look just as natural as the red oak edge banding itself. So we're going to fire this up, we're going to put it in, and we're going to start the edge banding. This has burnishing rollers, so I just push the piece through. The glue is melting it and applying it as I go, and this are burnishing in, so I don't have to hit it with a piece of wood to really make sure that it adheres. It does it for me on its own. You'll notice when I back up the camera here that I have an out feed support on that side right there, and that's because these pieces that I'm going to be pushing through are going to be long, and just like a table saw, I don't want them tipping once I get past the midway point. And if you look on this side here, my MFT is going to be my in-feed support. And that's the benefit of having all your tables and whatnot in the shop being just roughly all the same height. So now let's turn this machine on. It's plugged in. It's just a simple power button. Hold it in right here. I'm going to let that fire up, and this machine takes 8 minutes to heat up. So we're going to come back and start. Once that is done, I'm going to show you how I put the glue in there, and then we're going to just start edge banding the material. And then I'm going to show you the way that I trim it off after that's adhered to the workpiece. So while that's heating up, here is another trick that you can do to save time. Because once this gets ready and it's ready to go, you want to just start applying your edge banding. You want to have everything ready for you. So what I like to do is take the roll and break off all the pieces. So what I'll do is just go to the edge, and I'm going to overhang it about 3 fingers length. Come down here, hold it against there, roll it out, put my thumb, a little bit of pressure, give myself a little extra over here. I pull it to the edge, 3 fingers, and then I just fold it and snap it off. Now I have the perfect length of the edge banding I need. Okay guys, so with the press of a button, you can see the plunger in the machine move backwards. That allows room for me to open it up and put a glue puck in there. And as soon as I do that, it unlocks, I put it in, I close it back, it pressurizes, and it's ready to go. And now I just feed the edge banding into the machine. I hit the go button, and it force feeds it all out to me. And all I got to do is keep pressure against the rollers, and the machine will do the rest, gluing and applying the edge banding while burnishing it in. And you can see the results here. Absolutely perfect. And now I'm just zoomed out a little bit so you can see the whole operation here. And I'm not putting a lot of pressure on this. I'm just making sure that it stays against the feed rollers and the burnishing roller. This way I get a perfectly glued edge. Now this is the Festool trimmer. This is like a guillotine. And basically it just gives a nice, clean, flush edge. Now this is the Festool MFK 700 trim router, and this is the base with the bearing that allows me to trim the edge banding flush just by letting this sit flat on the material. It also presents the router at a 1.5 degree angle, which gives me just a slight chamfer, ever so slight chamfer on the edge, which makes it an absolute perfect finish. Okay, so the edge banding really speaks for itself. You can see how perfect all these edges came out. These are all identical pilasters. These 4 are U-shaped because they're going to go flat against the wall. These pieces here are L-shaped only because they're going to be going, one side is going to be against the wall and the other side is going to be into a corner. But you can see that edge banding up close, and that is just perfect. So as you can see, just a couple of ways that you can do edge banding. Obviously, one is more expensive than the other. But like I said before, if you are just a hobbyist or you're working in your shop on smaller jobs, maybe once in a while you're doing some cabinets. Even if you're doing cabinets maybe like once every 2 or 3 months, something like that, stick with the iron method. Fast Cap also makes a stick-on method. It's like a peel and stick veneer. Edge banding, you can use that, and they have a whole trimmer set and everything. This guillotine that you see me use to cut off the edges is just part of the whole package deal that I purchased when I purchased the Festool Conturo. The glue pucks are a separate purchase. This whole thing will total you probably over $4,000 with tax and all the little accessories. The MK700, you've seen me use this before to trim the edge banding, and anyone that tells you that this is just like a regular trim router, an overpriced trim router, they're really out of their minds. You don't know how versatile this thing really is. And like I said, I'm not sponsored by Festool at all. I use their products because they work and everything works in conjunction with each other. And you see me take my whole shop, because it's modular, and bring it over to the job site, set it up at the job site, wrap it all up when I'm done, bring it home, set it back up in my shop. So you can take that with a grain of salt if you want. You know, it works for me. It doesn't mean it's going to work for you. I am a professional finish carpenter / cabinet maker now, so this is what I do. So I'm doing this full time now. Most of you know that I retired a week ago on May 22nd, so I haven't really put anything out there yet. I'll be talking about that in the future, but right now it's full-time carpentry, and I need stuff like this to get me through the jobs quicker. I need more efficiency so that I could take on more jobs, because time is money. If you are working in your garage on the weekends, pre-glued, iron-on edge banding, I did it for years, it works. If you are a professional, if you're a cabinet shop, then you obviously, a production cabinet shop, you're not gonna have just this edge bander. You're gonna have a whole dedicated, set up giant machine that runs the material through on its own with rollers, feed rollers. It trims it on its own, and it also cuts the ends. So all they have to do is take it out and sand it down when it's in finish mode. So basically that's what you'd be using, and those machines take up, I wouldn't even be able to use one of those. It would basically take up my whole shop. So I'd be left with nothing but an edge bander. I wouldn't even be able to fit this stuff in here because they are gigantic. But a lot of cabinet makers that I know also have this besides that giant production machine, because this is mobile. You can take this with you, and like I said, if you're on site and you need to make a small cabinet and you don't have time to run back to your shop and make it, you're right there, you have the material, you can do it right there at the client's home and not make a mess. Second of all, this has the attachment roller where you can do really tight radiuses. If you're doing, say, a Formica countertop and you have the edge banding of that Formica countertop, or if you're doing a computer desk that has a really tight radius and you need to put a PVC edge banding on that computer desk, this will get into that tight radius and make that curve and apply that edge banding there. You cannot do that with an iron. Once you get into a corner, the iron will not bend to go into the round over part of the inside of that radius. So you are limited to straight pieces with this. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this type of video. They're starting to hit my lawn right now. The lawnmower is getting a little bit loud in here, so it is time to end the video. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you got something out of it. Definitely check the links in the description box below for all the products I used, and I will see you guys next time. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button.